got your attention now, don't I?
This is the Black Rifle Coffee Podcast.
Special one. We always say that. It's always, got a special show today. No, but you flew in for this, so I'm excited. And it's always a treat to have a United States Navy SEAL join. Wait.
Oh, really? Really? Dude. We had to go there.
Come on. They look good.
Look at the hair. I'm not wearing tanning oil. I don't have the hair gel going on.
Oh, that's right.
I love my brothers, but
you look like war-torn. So Green Beret.
That's right.
Green Beret, Mr. Jay Collins from Florida, Tampa area. You recently have announced that you're running for Congress down there.
That's right.
And dude, all these veterans that are running for office right now, we're super happy that they are, because everybody knows things are wonky.
It's a little crazy out there right now, right?
So yeah. Please tell us about, when did you go in the Army? When was that? What?
So I joined up in the Army after getting kicked out of the National Guard, right? I was a athlete in college.
Whoa. Yeah, let's go back to you're in the National Guard.
I'm in the National Guard. I wrecked my knee playing football, right? Okay. ACL, MCL. And they were like, look, you're not really able to do this Army thing anymore, this National Guard thing. So we're going to expedite you on the way out. Okay, cool. Joined the Army 2 years later. But they asked me to come in a non-physical MOS. So I'm like, what am I going to do? They offered me X-ray tech, medical this, medical that. And then I saw intelligence. I was like, now that sounds cool. I'm thinking James Bond, right? In reality,
I want to be intelligent.
Right. Yeah. That wasn't what I did, though. I ended up in a building with no windows a lot of times. I loved it, learned a lot about the Army, met amazing people, but spent my first couple of years in the military in Korea, dealing with that problem set. Went to Fort Carson, a.k.a. trips to NTC for about 2 years. And then ended up going to the UK, where I ended up meeting my wife, who was also in the Army. She's retired now. She's a counter intel agent. And, it was pretty amazing. We ran off to Vegas after 2 months.
I love this story.
Right? The most unlike us thing in the history of each of us. We're pretty serious people, right? Yeah. Maybe a little stoic. I don't have the great hair. So, I make up for it where I can. But in the end, we got our way to Fort Bragg, and that's really where I want to pick up this story, because everything in our life kind of shifted at that.
I think everybody's life kind of shifts when it gets to Fort Bragg.
Well, Fort Bragg is the epicenter of the universe, right? People don't realize it, but everything in the world draws back to Fort Bragg. Fayetteville, North Carolina, one way or another, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Everybody in our community knows it.
I was there. I was there for six great years.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I did. I loved the unit that I was in. I loved the schools and the training I got to attend. I loved the people that I met. To include, the people I met out on town. What years did you end up back at Fort Bragg?
So I got to Fort Bragg actually just before 9/11. Signed in as the first of the 325. I was pretty stoked. Went off to test the theory of gravity at Fort Benning, Georgia. It actually worked. So on September 10th, I did my first jump out of a military aircraft, and tested it. Was pretty excited. I didn't, my chute opened. I didn't have to use my reserve, and I was able to get up and walk away. 9/11, we loaded up on the plane. And we flew in circles. We didn't know what was going on.
So you guys are in chutes. You're in jump school.
We are in jump school during 9/11.
This is great, because we hear tons of stories during people's history about where they were in 9/11. This is a first for me.
Yep.
I have not heard of anybody that was in the plane at jump school during 9/11.
I'm in a plane, 9/11, getting ready to do jump number 2, right? To go back to the 82nd Airborne Division and do what we got to do, right? And they wave off the jump, tell us to sit down, they leave us hooked up, and we fly in circles for hours. No one knows what's going on. No one's communicating. It's Georgia. It's hot. We're in the vomit comet, right? Like things are going sideways in a hurry. Finally, they tell us to, unhook. We sit back down and we keep flying. Finally, they're like, look, we're going to go ahead and land. They bring us down, park us in the middle of the tarmac, right? And we still don't know what's going on. We have no idea. It's been hours at this point. We're out of fuel. They landed us. The plane's hot. You don't want to leave kids in a car. You don't want to leave a plane full of Joes sitting in the sun either, right? So finally, they get us in the tarmac, sit us out there, And they tell us that something's happened that's extremely important. The airspace is getting locked down. So we're like, wow, all right.
Oh, yeah, this is 2000. No one's got phones.
Right,
There's no
none of it.
social media. There's no internet.
That's right.
Everyone's just kind of like, wait, what? Something's happened. The airspace is closed.
That's right. We're like, wow, so something big has happened. We have no clue. We're thinking, okay, we're probably going to be pulled out of jump school. The whole world's going to change. We have no clue what had just happened. So they finally get us in the cattle cars, right? We're loaded up. We drive back. We offload. And they sit us out in the rocks in Fort Benning, Georgia. Yeah, that's right. We're just sitting there. And you know those TV stands that you saw as a kid when they wheel it in? You were really excited because it's like, ooh, we're skipping class for a little bit. We're going to watch a movie. Well, that's what they brought out. And they replayed the videos of what was going on. I was in utter shock. So my wife and I had just gotten married a few months prior, and she was actually living in D.C. at the time. We didn't have cell phones. Nobody did that, right? Sure. So I don't know, is she okay? Is she not okay? We're desperately trying to get through. Phone lines are jammed. The bases are locked up. Finally, we were able to get in touch. We found out all was okay. And, we all expected our world to shift, but I don't think any of us really understood how dramatically things were going to shift. We all wanted to get into the war because it was going to end quickly, right? That's what we all thought back then. In no way, shape, or form do we think it would last as long as it did. So we do that. I want to say there's probably 7 or 8 people pulled out of our class, went back to wherever they came from. The rest of us graduated jump school, went back to Fort Bragg.
Did they finish the jumps, or did they just say, hey, one was enough?
No, we did, actually. We ended up doing all of our jumps. We did 3 in one day at the end of this thing.
That actually was probably nice.
It was. It was a good way to finish up, right? And did all those things, got back to Fort Bragg, and prepared to get ready to get our gun on, right? We were all leaning forward in the pocket. I'm going to take a little pause on this. So the Army has a program called the Joint Married Couples Program. Mm-hmm. If you like movies, I'm going to refer to the Pirates Code with Pirates of the Caribbean. Yeah. It's kind of an ish. So my wife was in D.C. I was stationed in the U.K. We all got brought back to Fort Bragg, and she was not coming in the most expeditious route with the Army travel plan. So she came a few months later. So I'm trying to find a place. I'm living in temporary lodging and everything. And we finally get settled in the same place, and they send me off to the Joint Interagency Task Force for a one-person deployment to Tampa, Florida, actually to go work with CENTCOM and SOCOM. Have no idea who these people are. And that was my first real exposure to what SOF was about, how they operaed, and
how did you get selected for that? Because you're Intel
I was an
background?
Intel guy.
Yeah,
I was just an Intel guy. And they were like, you're an Intel guy, you're in the right rank, and you're here by yourself. You're the guy. Congratulations, you made it. Roger that.
Wow.
So off I go, right? And it was amazing because until then, I had never experienced being around SF guys, TAC-Ps, PJs, Navy SEALs. I'd read about it, but didn't really experience it. And I really saw the kinetic aspect of what they were doing, right? So after that, I knew no matter what happened, that's the arena I wanted to get into. So I came back from that was a 9-month trip, and went to selection like 3 weeks afterwards. No kidding. Didn't train up, didn't do anything. Just was like, I don't care what you do. I'm going to pass. I'm not going to lose. I'm not going to fail. This is my one opportunity, and I'm not going to pass.
And this is after the National Guard had kicked you out for leg injuries.
This is. I mean, check the irony on that, right? So, went to selection in November of 2002, the infamous ice storm class, right? So it was so cold that trees were freezing and falling on people, right? Like dead serious. They actually closed down SEER school and selection because it was too cold. That never happens. Insanity, right? So managed to make that, there's a huge cut line. I get selected and they're like, congratulations, son. You're going to get to go be a Green Beret. I was like, awesome. I want to be an 18 Bravo, a weapons guy. And they're like, no, I don't think so. How about a Charlie?
You're an Intel guy.
Right.
You have some smarts in you.
And then they're like, well, how about an Echo? I was like, do you want to be an SF guy? Well, yes, sir, I do very much. Well, you're going to be an 18 Delta. I was like, I don't want to be a medic, right? Let's rephrase this. Do you want to be an SF guy? I'll ask again. Absolutely, right? So that's a great idea, sir. I would love to be an 18 Delta. Let's do this. That's a fine idea. I think that's the
best idea I've heard all day.
I can't believe you guys did it. I'm stoked. So, 2 months after that, I PCS. We start the Q course, and it is a 2.5-year failure, day in, day out. Everything is a test. You can fail any given week. It's opportunity, right? The outcome's dependent on you. It's kind of like our Constitution, right? It's opportunity plus hard work yields outcome. So we go through that, and it's amazing. I never would have thought that I would have loved medicine, but it gave me something kinetic. It gave me something valuable, and it made a difference. And I really fell in love with what we did in the 18 Delta reign and, in the realm. I wouldn't say this back then, but I'll say it now. I'm so thankful that those guys understood that I would be a good fit for this, because I never would have done this. I would have loved being a Bravo, because we all like to play with guns and blow stuff up and do these awesome things. But it was pretty amazing. And getting those tools and that mindset really paid off later, right? So I went to 7th Special Forces Group. I'm excited.
You get to stay at Bragg at this point.
I do, right? Yeah. My whole career was pretty much at Fort Bragg, right? That was home. I had always envisioned I'd be there for 4 years and go back to somewhere else. Never did I think I'd be that guy who spent almost 20 years on Fort Bragg, right? But whatever, man, it happens. So we're at 7th Special Forces Group. I go to ODA 732 and 734, now 7132, 7134. We deployed to South America a couple of times. We come back and they're like, look, guys, you guys are going to Afghanistan. Get ready, get prepped. You're going to be going to Oregon. Like, awesome, cool. So by now I get moved over to the Halo team, 734, and we're prepping. We're ready to go. We infill, and it's April of 07, and it's our first real big gunfight. You know those old G.I. Joe cartoons where that's like blue tracers and red tracers 100%. And everything's blown up? Well, it's kind of one of those, right? It's a knockdown, drag out.
Some RPGs.
Well, yeah, we actually had there was a couple RPGs where they fired them so close they didn't blow up, right? Yeah. They just hadn't armed. You hear a big clunk and you're like, what on earth is that, right? I'll use better language this time, right? But you look over there and like, oh, well, look at that. The guys are so close. They're shooting, so close to us because they don't want the A-10s to come in and do gun runs. They know if they're up close and personal, that can't happen. So we're calling in airframes, whatever else. They're just doing drive-bys, essentially, to scare them free. And that's when it happens, man. We're getting our gun on. I'm on the 240 in the back deck of the back truck, and I start slipping on the floor, right, of this deck. I think, oh my God, man, they probably hit my case of Rippets, right? I'm heartbroken, thinking I'm going to have to lose my caffeine content, or maybe they hit some oil, something like that. It never dawns on me that it could be blood, right? So in war, and you know this, right? There's always an ebb and a flow, a crescendo and a decrescendo, and things finally slowed down a little bit, right? So you reflexively shift out your gun, pull the belt, add in more rounds, do what you got to do, get prepped and ready for the next, pickup in the gunfight. And I shine a light down there and I realize it's blood. I still don't think it's me, right? Like, I'm looking around at our driver, our TC, the guy in the turret, and I'm like, dude, what's up? And they're looking at me like, they're giving me that look like, it's you, bro. Like, check yourself. I look down and realize I've probably lost about 1 liter of blood. Ooh. I throw a tourniquet on, right? You have so much adrenaline.
Where's it coming out of?
Out of my arm, man. So I got hit in the arm. So you get up on the swing arm, right? Yeah. You're not supposed to put your arm on top of that, right? It messes with the feed, and our Bravos gave me a whole reason why, but I'm a medic, so I can get away with it, right? And luckily, my arm was there, or that round would have, on that ricochet, probably would have hit me in the face. So it hits my arm. We're pretty blessed in that regard, right? And put the tourniquet on, the gunfight picks up, and I leave a tourniquet on for the next hour and change while we're getting our gun on. It slows down, and we transfer it to a pressure dressing, wrap up the engagement. We got a bunch of people injured, and I'm like, dude, it's just an arm wound, right? What could possibly happen? Never think anything could go sideways. So we get the other guys out on the bird, and there is no next aircraft because we're in Casa Orzgon at Firebase Anaconda, and clouds chalk in. It is what it is, right? So a couple days later, we're starting to have some issues, and we realize we're going to have to do a surgery on my arm in the firebase. It's one of those things that you say it out loud. They're like, wait, what? Dead serious, man. My junior medic, myself, we brought in our weapons guy and our engineer as scrub techs and surge techs, and we did a block on the elbow, a block on the shoulder, and we prepared my left arm to be cut on. I want to make up a word because I like doing this sometimes, and my right arm to surgerize my other arm, right? So, yeah, no kidding, man. There we are. I've got, a partial fasciotomy we're getting ready to do, open up 2 compartments with my junior medic and I, and we're doing what we have to do because I've got, compromised vascularity and a bunch of other things going on, and they couldn't get us out. And, you do what you do, man. But that training in the 18 Delta course, inoculating you with stress, telling you no matter what you come up against, we're going to have you prepared for this moment that you don't know is coming, that you could never even imagine. And that was my moment. I mean, there's nothing that prepares you to do surgery on yourself. It's a way cool barroom story when you share it with people, but it was not awesome at the time, right? Like, I kid you not. When we first started doing this, man, my arm looked like a Singer sewing machine, right? It's like I felt like I was going to give myself a tattoo, right? It was crazy. But yeah, man.
How did you prep for this? Okay, first, you've got 3 individuals that have no experience in medicine, but maybe some TCCCs,
That's right.
Some CLS, and then you've got a junior medic who, fresh out.
He's a young guy.
Okay. So what was the planning that went into surgery here?
Well, back then there was what they call the War Wound Surgical Handbook, right? So you open this up, you're like,
this is the anarchist cookbook.
Fasciotomy. It has a drawing of an arm. It looks like my 6-year-old drew it, right? And I love my boys, and I'm not talking smack at all. It's got a dotted line that says cut here, right? Like, that's the depth of what it gives you. You're like, oh my goodness. But we, in the course, they teach you how to do this, right? We train on burns, we train on these things. So we understand the concept, how to do it, but we've never really done a fasciotomy, right? Yeah. Let alone on yourself. All I knew is that if we don't do this, there's a really good shot that I lose my arm, or I have real bad complications that could end up retiring me or something like that. And my best shot of having a successful outcome is to do something that you really can't prepare for. So we literally drafted this out, cleaned everything, prepped it, got everybody set up, told them specifically how they're going to do this. But, the thing with your weapons guys and your engineers, they're really good with their hands, right? They build bombs, they play with guns, small parts. So they're really good and adept at learning these things. And, in our community, everyone's got really good functional intelligence. So they pick this stuff up fast, and they'd all been, involved in treating patients, doing those things, cross-training like we do on teams. So, yes, they didn't have the formal training, but they figured it out pretty fast. And I won't say we stayed at a Holiday Inn Express, but it was pretty close, right? Like, that's kind of how we rolled. And, man, we did this. We opened it up. We had some great footage of it, but my laptop that was on got blown up later. So yeah, I was kind of sad faced about that.
That would be so good if we still had that.
I have a couple of photos. So here's a little funny anecdote. So my wife is in Intel, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, where she works on Fort Bragg, she's going to hear my roster number come across. So I got to call her, right? So I call her up and let her know, hey, look, I'm okay. I got hit. Probably going to have some surgery, but I'll be all right. So she's pinging. So I decided, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to tell her through a photo that I'm okay, right? So we show her a post-surgical photo of me smiling and pointing at my arm, right? And one while we're getting ready to cut. And she's like, what are you doing? Like, I don't want to see that. I was like, but I'm okay. Like, look, see?
I'm okay.
I'm happy.
Yeah.
We're good. We saved my arm. And she's like, no, don't do that. So guys, if you ever find yourself where you're doing surgery on yourself, don't send it to your girlfriend, your fiance, your wife, or anybody else, right? They don't want to see that junk, right? I thought I was just doing the right thing and communicating this, but little lesson learned.
It makes family reunions interesting. Uncle Ted invested into some stocks, and Sally went to Cabo. Jay gave himself surgery.
Yes. Those conversations do happen. And, went back to Tarrant Cout, had a few more surgeries, did this stuff, and I rushed back to the fire base 3 weeks later, and, we're there for the remainder of the trip, right? But a little funny anecdote, this has become like an urban legend where people talk about it. I've heard stories where my arm was hanging on and we sewed it back on. I've heard all kinds of crazy stuff. It was like, nah, man, it was just a 2-compartment fasciotomy. It's pretty cool.
It was just a 2-compartment.
It was just a 2-compartment fasciotomy, right? It was, it's pretty cool,
this
right?
This is not the first time you've had to operate on yourself.
Yeah. It's a thing, it's...
What else happened?
Well, we'll save that for another podcast, right? But no, and in the end, it's fun, be able to tell the story, have a little bit of fun with it, poke some, poke my chest a little bit and say, look, here's the lessons I learned. Here's the reality of it. But what's cool about it is we applied these lessons to how they educated people in the Q course. Yeah. And they started teaching people like, hey, you may actually have to use this skill. So why don't we train you on this, right? Let's do this, because there was this guy once who had to do surgery on himself.
This is really happening now.
Right.
So maybe we ought
to figure it out, right? And it's just nice to see that SOF adapted so quickly, right, to the needs on the ground, right? It's something that I think a lot of our government and other people could really learn from. You know, that same trip, a little bit later, back then it was the Wild West. It was very kinetic. They were directly trying to overrun the firebase again. And, you know, mortars are coming in. We have like 18, 20 head of horse, and they're shooting at our horse. They're dropping mortars. They're launching rockets. This is in August of 2007. And, you know, mortar hits. I get peppered with some shrapnel, don't think much of it, right? And fell down some steps. You know, really, you don't think anything of it, right? Nothing got ripped off. I'm like, all right, man, it's just a flesh wound, right? Like, whatever. We get up, do what we got to do, and you keep pushing. And whether it was the fall, the blast over pressure, no one really understands. But that moment in time is the best place they can figure out, is why I ended up losing my leg later. Really? So, yeah. It's a frog in a pot, right? You don't realize how bad it is until it's gone. Well, I ended up having my leg fall apart for the next several, 5.5, 6 years, to the point where prior to the amputation, it was essentially just skin and bone. I couldn't move it. I was in what's called the IDEO, which is this carbon fiber brace system that gives you propulsion like a prosthetic. I couldn't move it. I couldn't feel it. It was like Mr. Deed's foot, if you will, right? Yeah, it was great party tricks, right?
With a hammer?
Yeah, I can totally. I could like poke it with needles and stuff, and you couldn't feel it. I could take a 50-cent piece and jab it in my leg and leave a dent there for like 5 hours. It was bizarre. So, flash forward in this, because I know we went a little long on the arm story, but, my leg is falling apart. The Army decides they're going to retire me, right? Like we've reached that point where, dude, you're just not able to perform. Your leg is failing. You're obviously in pain. And I am, right?
You're at fire bases giving yourself surgeries. You're a liability for the Department of Defense.
I know. Well, I'm jumping out of airplanes still. I'm in this brace and fast rope and doing, Army Green Beret stuff, right? All this stuff that we love. And, I've moved on to some other units on Fort Bragg at this point, and they're very high energy, amazing people, and you don't want to be the weak link in those places, right? No. So I'm physically becoming kind of the weak link, right? Like up until this point in my life, nothing had been hard. I could always run and jump and outperform people physically in many regards. And I started to learn humility and what it was like to be broken and what it was like to just have to deal with adversity, right? And the Army tells me you're going to retire, but that organization sent me to the Mayo Clinic, oddly enough. They brought me to the Mayo. The Mayo looked at it differently. And what they found is that I had no lymphatic function in my leg. I had arterial and vascular compromise. I had no nerve function. So essentially, I had...
It wasn't there.
Yeah, I had a leg like an end-state diabetic, who's 105 years old, right? It was just a mess. The toenails had fallen out. The hair had fallen out. It was blue or purple. Just didn't look like the other, right? One of those kindergarten skills that we all rave about sometimes. So they're like, look, you're going to have to lose your leg at some point. It's now or later. I'd already made up my mind a couple years before that this thing was a triage nightmare. It wasn't getting better. I just wanted my life back, right? Yeah. I've got a little boy at the time who we're just so blessed to have, because we didn't expect to have kids, right? That's a whole other long story. And, we come back around after this appointment. A few months later, they cut it off. 3 days after surgery, I wake up without pain for the first time ever. Right, since this injury, and I was like, "Wow, dude, I feel good, like amazing." It's like everything's clear.
Clears your head. The pain is gone.
That's right. The
your mood is better.
Opened up. The sun is shining, and we hang out there for a few more months at the Mayo, or a few more weeks at the Mayo. Go back to Walter Reed. We're there for 5 months for rehab. And I bump into a guy named General Ray Odierno, right? I'm doing box jumps.
For him.
Yeah, he's a pretty big dude, right?
Yeah.
So I'm literally
he's the 18th Airborne Corps Commander in 2005.
That's right.
And I was in the Corps Jock for a little while. So
yeah, good guy, man, right? So I'm doing box jumps, right? I'm telling myself I'm going to not get retired. I'm going to stand active duty. I'm at 18 and a half years at this point. Everybody in the Army is telling me, like, dude, you're crazy. You're going to get retired. Yeah. That's the thing, right? Just pack it up, pack it in, go let something else begin, right? Little play on music there, right? But anyway, I'm doing box jumps. I turn around, I'm like, oh, wow. all right, it was a big guy. So I stepped back, actually make eye contact and not stare at his, I think I was staring at his rank because I'm a little bit of a stubby guy, right? A little short. And he's like, well, you're a little different than the rest of these guys. I was like, yes, sir. I told him my story. I'm a Green Beret. I want to stay in active duty. He said, okay, well, why don't you? I was like, well, I'm old. I'm at 18 and a half years, and they're telling me it's time to retire. I just want the opportunity. He actually called around, made sure that I got the opportunity, brought the Sergeant Major of the Army in, and I'm going to brag on our community. Everybody in Special Forces gave me the opportunity. You're either going to be able to prove yourself or not prove yourself, right? They gave me that chance. And, 1 year after I got back to Fort Bragg, we were found fit for duty as a Green Beret, but with one leg. One of the big questions that got asked there, and it comes up all the time still, when people talk about this, like, hey, if you're out there, you're jumping, you're deploying, you're doing Army Green Beret stuff, what are you going to do if your leg breaks? Like, dead serious.
It's the same thing if you have a regular leg.
Well, they're staring at me, but it's not, right? I'm like, well, I'm going to take my spare leg out of my back.
Yeah,
out of my rucksack, right? I'm going to change it. What are you going to do if your leg breaks? I'm going to carry you. So they're like, well played. Touche.
All right. You can have a spare leg. I cannot.
That's right. That's right. So, it was a blessing, that I say that now. I was so frustrated. You know how it is. You want nothing more than to get your gun on, to deploy, do all those things with the guys on your team. And when you get injured, you get taken out of that a little bit, right?
It's such a, it's that purgatory of no.
That's... It is, man. And all I want is to be a dude on a team, slinging lead, doing my job with my brothers and my friends to my left and my right, and do what we have to do. And that had been taken away from me, right? So to be, found fit for duty and requalify as a Green Beret and just keep pushing on, it was a blessing. But, it didn't go how I wanted to go. The Army had other plans because, again, I was an old guy. I had one leg. You say it out loud. They were like a little nervous about this, right? So they put me in a couple of positions to build programs for the DoD, to build ways to better train our operators in austere environments, working with the Jedburghs and some of those guys, giving medical skills to our non-medics to make them more survivable in the field. And it's pretty amazing how that all came around, these medical skills, all the things that I fought back against. You begin to realize that things happen for a reason, and when you just let life go a little bit and stop trying to control everything, sometimes it works out pretty good, right? And we created these programs, saved a bunch of dudes' lives, and by creating SOFAC and RSM and a bunch of these courses that made a difference. And I finally bring it all the way back to Special Warfare Medical Group, where I retire. It's my last duty assignment. I finally realized it's time. After about 5 years as an amputee, I'm like, I've had my fun. We're good. It is time to retire. I take a first sergeant job running the company, one of the companies there, and I'm like, this is good. It's synergy, right? We're going to close this thing out where the cool part of my career, everything I've loved doing, all began. And pretty amazing. Was nominated for an award, the Sting Glob Award there, which goes out to one of the top soldier in USASOC, and was given that because of what our team created on Fort Bragg with the RSM and SOFAC courses. And I share that not because I'm patting myself on the back. Nobody cares, right? That's just it's a plaque on the wall. But because it was really that first time that I saw that I was put through a lot of these things and lost the opportunity to be a Green Beret in a team because I was given the skills to overcome adversity, teach that to other people, and draw people in and help solve problems that were a little bit bigger, right? And it weighed on me that we as Green Berets, as soft professionals, call ourselves the quiet professionals, but quiet and silent aren't the same thing. When you're quiet, people wait to hear you speak. When you're silent, people speak for you, and they don't speak your equities appropriately. And I think that is part of the problem with what's going on in our country right now, right? We have a ruling class that has stepped into the breach and is doing all those things for us, right? Long-term politicians who don't speak for our ideas, ideals, or principles.
Don't even have a grasp on what everybody's actual kind of temperature is.
That's right.
Like,
what have you
we're
really
seeing it every day.
Yeah, what have you built? What have you done? What have you What have you actually had to give up? What hard choices have you had to make? What are your life experiences that put you in a position where you speak for the American people?
I think you reel it back to, where are your efforts being pushed? Because you should be able to show us that, and we should be able to triage it to what is who you represent.
That's right.
Like, and that's where I think we've kind of lost it. You know, Tony Cowden was on here a couple weeks ago, and he said, "Yeah, I'm bringing back the definition of a representative. I'm not here to tell you what I think." You know, he says he goes to his town hall meetings and his events that he does. He goes, "What do you want? What is it that you guys are thinking? Because if you're putting me in this place, I am now the person that's supposed to speak for you. So tell me what you would like me to do." Like, when did we lose that? Like, it's crazy to me, because I don't even see like you would think, with the increase in technology that we have now, the connectivity, with the things that we have, it would be very easy for us to put a system in place that verifies your identity and creates geo borders. Mm-hmm. And that way, a congressman or someone in Congress has an instant ability to ask their district where they sit on certain items and have them weigh in and vote. Like, would you like me to push for more money for roads? Would you like me to push for more money for schools? Where do you stand on CRT or this? And they can look at it and go, well, my district is this way, so I'm going to go ahead and think that way. Instead, what you have is this wave of individuals that have jumped into a seat for their own personal fame. All they're concerned with are sound bites that they get on one of the leaning news outlets. And there's no progress, or there's really no sustenance that comes out of it. Like, it's like, when you look at some of these people, what have they done since they got in office? Just throwing a bill on the floor that you know is just going to get thrown away isn't progress.
Yeah, co-signing a bill that's just going to go nowhere. Agreed, right?
And really, all it is grandstanding. It's a new form of gaslighting, of pretending to social media that you do something. And that's what's been bothering me a lot lately, is I see a lot of people on both sides grandstanding and making some weird blanket statement that actually, when you truly pick that apart, it doesn't mean anything. It's you know, standing up and saying, yeah, a perfect example. The other day I saw, we will never let them regulate crypto. And it's like, well, first off, like, what does that mean? And then what you just said doesn't necessarily, you're never going to be able to control that. You're just saying something for the sake of saying something and hoping that someone that looks at your stuff connects you with that, and then their mind is made up. And it was just, that's just an example of something I've seen.
No, I totally get
lately.
And Tony and I are friends, right? He's an awesome guy. I love everything about the man. And I like to say words have meaning, right? Yeah. As a representative, I mean, clap it out. Representative, right? Mm-hmm. Say it out loud. Take it to heart. You have to talk to your people. The bottom line is, whether you do it digitally, you do it in person, you actually have to take the time to go back and talk to your constituents. Period. Right? If you're not talking to your constituents, who are you serving? Whose voice are you actually pushing out there? In the end, I think the American people are tired of politicians telling them how to think. They want their voice to be heard, right? They want to be asked, well, what do you think? What do you feel? What does this entire community feel? Those are the things we have to do as a representative. I'm not going to tell people how to think, right? It's just not my jam.
That never's going to work. No
right.
matter
Nobody wants
what
that,
platform
right?
you're on.
It's crazy.
Like,
it's crazy. I'm a little remiss. I forgot to mention one thing, right? I also work in the nonprofit sector. Yeah. So my role in the nonprofit is obviously completely separate from what I do in politics and running for office. But I want to bring it up because it's important. Our country is a very giving country, right? We don't have to be legislated into the same outcome. People give freely. Look what's going on in Ukraine, right? With people giving freely for people they've never met in a different continent, in a different country. We do the same thing within our own borders. When I retired, I ran a bike from Los Angeles on Skid Row all the way to Tampa, Florida in 50 days, 3,000 miles in 50 days. We call it the Breaking Bread Tour. And we wanted to just break bread and draw people in and let people know that, you can sit down with people from all walks of life and break bread and see what you have in common, right? And what we proved to ourselves, and my whole family was with me, right? My children fed meals in Skid Row, my wife did, all the way to Tampa, where we opened up the Warrior Games, is that people really saw three things, right? They wanted their family to be successful, they wanted a better future for their kids, and they wanted to be a part of growing their community, no matter where we were in the country. Everyone kind of agreed on that, right? No matter what. And
no one's waking, and that's the thing. That's where I think we've gotten so clouded with social media now. No one wakes up and is like, man, I wish I gave more money to the government. Man, I wish the government told me more of what I can and can't do with where I live. Or
that's right.
No one's just like, man, I really wish that.
Oh, absolutely, right? It's government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And the government doesn't have money. They have taxes they take from us, right? Yeah. But in a republic, the minority and the majority are protected from each other. But more importantly, they are protected from the government, right? We are the people in charge. We have to use our voice. And I made this point about the nonprofit to just bring it around to the point you made with Tony, right? To be a representative, you got to be involved. You got to ask the questions, but you have to throw your foot in the ring, right? You have to choose to do something bigger than yourself. You have to choose to be a part of a solution. I share my time in the nonprofit because I didn't want to just sit there and talk about making a difference. I wanted to go make a difference. We've fed millions of people across the country, right? We give back to veterans and first responders, military. It makes a difference. That's the kind of selfless service and dedication to the American people we should expect from representatives, right? Period. It's not about serving yourself or serving anything other than the American people. So let's bring this thing full center, right? And let's talk the politics. I mean,
and that's 100%. It's like I've shifted now where it's like, you got to earn your opinion.
That's right.
Like all the shouting that goes on these days. And it's a lot of noise from people that have never done anything for their community, for politics, for anything. So it's like they want to jump on you and shout how you should think or how you should behave or what you should do. And then it's like, I start backtracking them on Instagram. Like, it's like, okay, you want to make this strong stance. All right, let's see what this guy does. And it's always nothing. It's like, okay, so like you have all these strong opinions, but what have you done? At what point have you gone, okay, I'm working on this to make this better for the country? And if that is an empty basket, then I don't want to hear your opinion.
That's right. Well, and in the end, everyone has the opportunity to speak, but everyone's voice comes with different ways, right? You have to have experience to be able to weigh in and help make a difference.
And we've lost that, though. People that don't have to have any experience. You've got people that have never even read a medicine book, let alone took a medicine course, is going to jump on the internet and tell you how a tourniquet should be applied. That's the craziness that we face right now.
We don't want to get in the tourniquet debate, right? We really don't. That's a whole other 5-hour podcast.
Yes, I know. But just the experience-based knowledge and experience-based opinions.
That's right.
It's like people are too quick to fire off third-party information that they've just listened to. They've never had to experience.
Well, that's right. When you go into a kinetic situation, who do you fear? The person who's making the most noise or the person who's quiet in the back of the room? Always fear the person who's quiet, the quietest person in the room. They're the person to watch, right? Because they're generally taking it all in. They're thinking, they're reasoning, they're solving problems, right? It's very much the same way here, right? When you do events, you're speaking to people, you have the folks who are just talking, blowing up, saying all these things, but you got to watch the people in the back of the room for both pros and cons. They're either the ones who are really going to have something profound that you need to work on, or they're going to say something that makes a difference to those around the room. And I think a lot of times we get sucked into it. We were talking about it earlier in focusing on just the negative aspects of all that comes out on things, right? And it's important to take the balance of this and not just paint this negative picture because, one of the things that I really like to talk about as a politician is people tell us we're a nation divided, right? How many times do you hear that a day on common media? But we're not, man. We're a nation that people are desperately trying to divide, because when they point us against each other, they can push whatever rhetoric, whatever nonsense they want. And in the end, I'm a Republican candidate, right? I believe in conservative values. I swore an oath to defend our Constitution. That never expires. I love our country. I bled for our country, and I would give everything I have to make sure my children have the same opportunities we did, right? That's where my heart is at. And that's honestly why I'm running, is because I didn't see people who espoused our values, who spoke to the blood equity, the sweat equity, who put the time in to serve this country, that I thought were able to take this race and flip this seat and help flip the House. And, my dad taught me this, SF pushed this in my head, and every other unit that I ever been around told me this. If you see a problem that needs solving and nobody knows how to solve it, but you do, if you don't solve that problem or at least try your hardest, you are the problem. And I just couldn't stand on the sideline, right? I didn't dream of politics, man. This isn't something that...
it's not glamorous.
No.
I've watched my friends just get chipped apart by it.
It is exhausting. It wears you out. But in the end, it's a hard fight, but it's the right fight. And the right fight is always worthwhile, right? Because what we're talking about is the future of our nation, a country unlike any other in the annals of history, right?
Yeah, and that can be drastically changed in a matter of 2 years if the wrong people are there making the wrong decisions.
And I love the point you made earlier about you have to have value to things, right? We can't just give everything away for free. People have to understand that the freedoms and liberties we have weren't just given to us, right? They were earned. Our country painfully earned these. Our nation is built on the shoulders of so many giants that came before us, but it's really kept in place by the sacrifices of people currently serving. And it's our time now to make sure that we bring this thing back to the center, right? Think Reagan and Tip O'Neill, where we're at our best. The left and the right, guys, we're not at war against each other. We're American citizens. We should try to solve problems together because that's what's good for our country. But in the end, the conservative values you and I talked about and, many of us believe in, they're not conservative values. They're American values. Yeah. They're the values we were all raised on, period. We need to come back to that, because what we're talking about in some of these far left fringy organizations and with fringy people, even elected officials, is socialism, and that always turns out the same way, right?
And it comes back to with the lack of solution. Like, I hear a lot of noise on the left of we should, but then you can combat that with what problem are we solving by doing that? Like, that's start right there. Mm-hmm. If you had your way, what did we solve?
So it's called gap analysis, right? I think that's what they called it when we were coming up the ranks, right? What is the gap that you see that needs to be solved, and how do we functionally solve that? And then educate your people and build a plan moving forward, right? What we do is the opposite. We have a solution. We try to find a gap to jam it into, right? Yeah. And sell it to the American people. It's just backwards. It never works that way. So, yeah, about 6 months ago, we threw my leg in the ring, quite literally. And I love to use leg jokes. I get to do that. And it's great to live in Tampa because we have a whole pirate fest with Gasparilla. It's an amazing city.
I heard you have a leg up on your competition.
I do have a leg up on my competition. And if you go to jcollinsforcongress.com, you can buy a shirt with my leg on it as well. It's pretty awesome.
Oh, what was that website? That was J Collins for Congress.
jcollinsforcongress.com. Yes, 2 L's. And check out our merch, right? Because, we are giving America a leg to stand on. And, limping ain't easy, right? So it's one of those things. But quite literally, we threw my leg in the ring a few months ago, and we're running against Kathy Castor, who is by all accounts a very nice human being, but her politics are abysmal. She votes 100% of the time with Pelosi, 97% of the time with AOC.
Wow, that's not someone
right.
I would be on the train with.
Well, and that's in Florida, man, right? Like, we're a conservative state. We're a free state. People want.
And if Florida has taught anybody anything in the last year, it's look at what you guys have done. Like, right. And then everybody ran there. Well, all the same people that were barking out against it the second the cameras were off and Twitter was put away, they ran to Florida to go live their lives.
They sure are.
And Art, is Florida have some weird body count we don't know about? Because I still think New York takes the cake over there.
I think you're pretty accurate on that, right? I'm going to give a shout out to Governor Ron DeSantis, right? Like, that man is amazing. What he has done to stand up and fight for the individual civil liberties of our people in Florida is such a blessing. And really, he's set the standard on the national stage, right? He's leading when others wouldn't step up and lead. And love it. We are so blessed to live in that state. And
I love to see his video yesterday of cut the theatrics. What are you doing?
Like, come on.
And then there's so, honestly, they're exposed. And that's what's amazing, is because to watch the news jump on how irresponsible it was for optics of a leader to do that. It's like, no, you're exposed. And he's calling bullshit when he sees it.
Yeah, man. He is a extremely intelligent guy.
You guys are lucky.
He is all about the American people and the people in the great state of Florida. We are just blessed to have him. And, with that in mind, we're trying to flip Florida 14 right now. It's Tampa Bay, aka Champa Bay, because that is what we do right there, and we're pretty lucky. We have a team put together that's flipped seats across the country. We've been very blessed. We just made the NRCC Young Guns program late last week, making our race and this campaign both targeted on a national basis. And I don't say that to pat myself on the back, dude. I'm just the mouthpiece, right? I'm out here willing to throw my leg in the ring because I've been shot and blown up, and sticks and stones may break my bones, and they do. But words are words, right? And it's okay. I'm willing to go out there and serve, but I'm willing to serve the voice of the American people because I do care. We do ask. It's not about what I think. It's about what we, the people, think. It's not about me. It's about we, right? 100%. That's one of our taglines.
And if you're listening out there watching and you don't live in Florida, it's still important to support guys like you because,
that's right.
If we can win that house, that means we can get things passed that we want to get passed, that we can protect the things that they're trying to unravel and sneak into these fucking crazy 3,000 page bills.
Well, that's right.
And we need more common sense politicians out there that are willing to stand up and say, enough with the bullshit. Stop.
That's right.
We need accountability of our money. We need accountability of, this disaster of Afghanistan. But where are we going to do it? The news perks up last week that supposedly they have Hillary yet again doing something. And is anything happening? No. Why? You're just showing us that there's a separate set of rules.
Yeah, and you're hitting a great point, right? Elections have consequences, right? We were energy independent. We had an economy that was ticking along, and elections happen, and now we're dealing with all the things we are, and we don't have time to go over all the things that Biden is messing up. But in the end, we have to be present, right? The reason we fought so hard to remain on a team, and I felt so guilty for so many years for not getting to be out there with him while I was rehabbing, is because they tell you, you've got to be present. You got to be on point. You got to be with your team or you can't really do your job, right? Mm-hmm. And we, the people, have to get involved. If we aren't out there running for school board, for county commissioner, for mayor, for all these open races, if we're not out there talking to our neighbors, having those hard conversations, whether we want to or not, right? We're not doing what we should be doing because this democracy is earned. And if it's our time, we can't let that ball drop. We have to get involved. Not everybody has to run for office, but if that's in your heart and you see fit, there's a ton of races out there without a conservative candidate in them where Democrats are running unopposed. And if you don't like socialism, you don't like where our country's headed, get involved. If you don't want to run for office, support someone who's running for office. If you don't want to support someone physically,
you don't have the money, volunteer.
That's right. If you don't have the money,
if you don't want to volunteer, share the information.
Go knock on doors. Go tell people. Go evangelize and tell the story, right? Yeah. But we all have our part. It takes many hands to do this, and we all have our role. And in the end, if you're going to have people willing to stand the fray and push against Pelosi and the radical left and all the crazy things that are going on, they're going to have an army of American citizens standing behind them, right? It's just the reality of it. And that's why our message has been, resonating. We have a real simple focus. Again, to make a leg joke here, I talk with my hands. I'm trying hard not to on the podcast, so I don't wave my hands in front of my face. And I only have 5 toes, right? So I keep things below 5 just for planning purposes. We focus on 3 things. And I'm going to couch them into simple subjects. Security. We got to secure our border. We got to secure our interior. We got to support our men and women in law enforcement, right? What's went on with the defund the police and that horrible movement, guys, I mean, say it out loud, right? If you say it out loud and it doesn't make sense, you probably shouldn't do it, right? It's just wrong. And then you hit on it a second ago. What's going on internationally with our failure points in Afghanistan has really allowed Russia, China, Iran, and everybody else who wants to do damage to liberties and freedoms to step into it, because we created a vacuum. The one thing that Biden doesn't understand and Trump did and Republicans do understand is that you have to lead with courage, strength, and honor. The world remembers what America is about. We have to remember what we're about, right? When we abandoned our allies, we emboldened our enemies, and we also isolated the allies who had served with us for many, many years in that country. By leaving that vacuum, we left a space and they stepped into it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the reality. Do you think this would have happened if we hadn't had those failures? Would Ukraine be invaded by Putin and his thugs? I don't think so. But when you exhibit weakness on the international stage...
Weakness and laziness.
That's right. It's, I'll bring TR up, right? He's a fascinating study in American history, right? Teddy Roosevelt. But it's big stick diplomacy, right? You have to keep the world straight. This isn't our fight in Ukraine, but it is something we can influence. And had we done our responsibility and our job and shown the world that we do stand for freedom and we have our crap in order and we're not going to let our country unfold, I bet a lot of this doesn't happen because Putin is put in check, right? What is China doing? We already know they have designs on Taiwan, right? What is Iran doing? We have this whole other deal that we never should enter back into with Russia as a third party brokering that. Are you kidding me? Are we really saying this out loud that we don't think there's negative collusion going on between these three countries? Like, guys, this isn't a square deal, right? Step away from the table. That deal shouldn't happen. And remind people who we are. We're the United States of America. We should never have let the Taliban tell us we could or could not take our people out. We don't need to allow Putin to have the world stage and push power across Europe. That's not what happens. If we lead with courage and honor, the world's going to be a much, much better place. And we can focus on things that matter, like our border, like our interior. How about not making bills that spend trillions of dollars we shouldn't spend, right? And, I make my 6 and 9-year-old balance their budget, and we just want to spend money like it's a Monopoly or a Hasbro game, right? We're driving inflation up faster than we're printing money, and that's pretty hard to fathom. And, the third point after security, money, is unity. We have more in common. All the things we're talking about, everybody believes, man. They want to balance their budget. They want their families to be happy and healthy, and they want security. Those are American values, and everyone's pretty much united on those things. And they agree they didn't vote for socialist nonsense, minus a few people in the fringe. So as conservatives, we have to go out there and be present. We have to use our voice, and we have to push that message,
It's amazing. I'm so glad you came out here to tell us all this. And I challenge everybody to go look further into your campaign because Florida needs you.
Well, I appreciate it, brother. And, even though I can be a little loquacious and, we're all SF guys, right? Or soft guys, we can tell stories. One of the hallmarks of our campaign is an ethos of deeds, not words. We don't need more politicians. We're going to step up there and just tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah.
I may not have the answers. I'll have the honesty to tell you I don't know that, but I will find out. But what I can promise you is when we do get elected, we do flip the House, I will work tirelessly. I will break my back every single day. If I have to bleed for the American people again, I will, right? Because that's what I believe in. There's nothing more important than passing off these freedoms to my children and those generations to come. And if you believe that, you believe in the message, man, go to jcollinsforcongress.com, follow us, and we appreciate the support.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jay.
Thanks.